Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Psych Talk. This is your host, Anna Chiara, and today we're diving into a topic that affects millions of lives: adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. We're also going to talk about divorce towards the end of this podcast, so you can skip this topic if you would like to listen only to about divorce. So, to kick things off, let's start with the basics. What exactly are ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences refer to a wide range of traumatic events that occur during childhood. For example, abuse, neglect, household dysfunction, or witnessing violence. And for abuse, it can be mentally or physically or both. These experiences can have a profound effects on a child's developing brain and body, shaping their outlook on life and influencing their future well-being. Now, picture this: the environment of a child facing ACEs. It may be filled with chaos, instability, unpredictability. Home may not be a safe place, and emotional and physical needs are not being met. These adverse environments can make it difficult for children to form secure attachments, establish a healthy relationship, and regulate their emotions effectively, because nobody taught them how to regulate their emotions. They don't have good examples for that in their lives. But what happens to your body and brain when you experience ACEs? Well, our bodies and brains are incredibly resilient, but when subjected to prolonged stress during childhood, they can be profoundly affected. So, the stress response system, which includes the release of stress hormones like cortisol, as you may know, can become dysregulated, leading to increased vulnerability to mental and physical health issues later in life. And also, it affects various regions of the brain responsible for emotional regulation, learning, and memory. One crucial area of the brain affected by ACEs is the amygdala, often referred to as the brain's alarm system. In children experiencing ACEs, the amygdala becomes hyperreactive, constantly on high alert, and primed for threat detection. So, this heightened state of arousal can lead to hypervigilance, difficulty in distinguishing between real and perceived threats, and an exaggerated stress response. Also, another brain region that is affected if you experience ACEs is the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functions such as decision making, impulse control, emotional regulation, and if the prefrontal cortex may have reduced volume or impaired connectivity with other brain regions, which makes it very hard for individuals to manage their emotions, make sound judgments, and regulate their behavior effectively. The constant release of stress hormones, particularly cortisol, is very dangerous, especially for diseases later in life. So, in these situations, when your body continuously releases cortisol, not only have temporary detrimental effects on the bodies for the ability to repair and regenerate cells, or the impact of overall health and well-being, but we also know that they can disrupt the natural balance of neurotransmitters in the brain, such as serotonin, dopamine, and which play an important role for regulating mood, pleasure, and motivation. But also, leads to mood disorders, decreased motivation, and decreased ability to experience joy and satisfaction. As children grow up, the effects of ACEs can manifest in various ways. They may struggle with mental health challenges, including depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. They might also develop physical health issues like heart disease, obesity, or even experience a shortened lifespan, also cancer. And these long-term consequences emphasize the urgency of understanding and addressing ACEs. So now is the big question. How do we prevent ACEs and how do we break the cycle of adversity? So prevention starts with awareness. It's important that you know and recognize the signs of ACEs and what the reasons why you're behaving in a certain way. So people who experience ACEs, they're more likely to smoke cigarettes, drink alcohol, binge drinking. And as I said before, it can lead to diabetes, cancer, a lot of diseases that you wouldn't normally get if you did not experience ACEs. And so recognizing the fact that you had a very challenging childhood is the first step. So early identification and also intervention can make a significant difference in a child's life. So intervention is very important. We need to foster a safe, nurturing environment that promote resilience and provide support systems for the children that are affected by ACEs. And so now we go to basically education, because education, if we educate parents, teachers, communities about ACEs, we can empower these individuals to create environments that prioritize the well-being of children. So equipping children with social and emotional skills, promoting healthy relationships, and ensuring access to mental health resources are all essential steps towards prevention. One thing that you can do as an adult if you experienced ACEs, besides being aware that you have been through a lot of trauma, so seeking therapy is very important, but also making healthy relationships, building healthy relationships with people, your community. Because growing up, you had very unhealthy relationships, dysregulated relationships, and you might seek people in your life that are not the best for you. They don't care for you, or they just use you. So getting rid of these people is very important. Surround yourself with people who love you and really care for you. Nutrition is very important, and exercise as well. So if you have experienced ACEs as a child, that doesn't mean that you're gonna get diabetes, cancer, and all these diseases. But you have to make changes. Otherwise, your life is not gonna magically change for the better. And remember that you always have choices. You always have the power to change. It's just gonna take a long time and a lot of effort. But with therapy, with the right people around you, and a healthy, balanced diet, exercise, and all these things can help you with basically buffering the negative effects that ACEs have on you. And also through understanding, compassion, and action, we can support people who are impacted by ACEs and work towards preventing them altogether. And I believe that nowadays in society, our generation, it's more aware of ACEs or in general, like childhood trauma, and we seek therapy more often, is not stigmatized as before. We're definitely doing more work than our previous generations. Okay, so now let's change topic. I want to talk about a little bit about divorce and marriage. And I also want to pose a question to you guys, and I want you to make you think about one topic that I will talk about. So nowadays, adults are getting married at a later age. Men usually get married around 30, women around 28. And in the US, we have a rate of 35 to 50% of like divorce for first-time marriages, whereas for second-time marriages, the divorce rate is about 60%. So it increases. The more you get divorces, the more you're likely to get a divorce. And in fact, if more than two marriages and in divorce, you have a 70% likelihood that your third marriage will end in a divorce. One interesting thing that I want you to think about is the fact that, so what do you think during the pandemic? Do you think that divorces went up or down? And this is a very important question because I feel like many people thought that divorces went up because people spend more time together and they weren't used to it, and maybe they actually don't like to spend that much time with their partner, etc. But in reality, divorces went down 12% during the pandemic. This is a 2021 statistic. I don't have the statistics from after the pandemic, which actually should be, I'm very interested in knowing the divorce rate after the pandemic, because I was thinking that during the pandemic, the reasons why people might have not initiated divorce is the fact that you are in an uncertain moment in your life. Everybody's going crazy. You don't feel safe. And definitely you're not thinking about, oh, let's make my life worse and let's get a divorce. So even let's say you're not happy with your marriage and you actually want to get a divorce, you were probably less likely to initiate a divorce during a pandemic. So I think that's the reason why. I don't think that people actually got closer to each other. I feel like some people did if they were compatible, if they have good communication. But that's why I'm very interested in knowing what happened after the pandemic, if the divorce rate went up or down. And one thing that I also want to talk about is what is the most common reasons for divorce? And it's infidelity. That's one of the most common reasons for divorce. And women are also more likely to initiate divorce. It's about 70%. And the rate of remarriage is lower for women compared to men. For women is 52%, for men is 64%. And unfortunately, only 20% of divorce is initiated by both parties. And also older couples tend to divorce less. So this is the end of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's topics. I hope that you learned something from it. And we talked about ACEs, what is, adverse childhood events, how to prevent them, how you can deal with them as an adult, how it affects your brain and your cortisol, etc. We talked about divorce and marriage. And yeah, Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great day. And I'll see you on the next episode of Psych Talk.